Hello, welcome to this learning module. In today's session, we will discuss the EMT's response to and their responsibilities at a hazardous materials incident. This video is designed to supplement any readings or coursework assigned by your instructor. A hazardous material is any substance or material in a form or quantity that poses an unreasonable risk to health, safety, property, or the environment. These materials can be explosive, flammable, corrosive, poisonous, or radioactive, and they can exist as solids, liquids, or gases. United States regulatory bodies like the EPA or Environmental Protection Agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration or OSHA, and the Department of Transportation or DOT each have specific criteria and definitions for hazardous materials within their jurisdictions. A hazardous material incident, or HazMat incident, is any event that involves actual or potential uncontrolled release of a hazardous material into the environment, which requires a coordinated response from emergency personnel to contain the release and protect the public and the environment. A HazMat incident can happen when the material unexpectedly escapes its container due to a leaking drum, a transportation accident, or a chemical spill at a plant. Incidents can occur during production, storage, transportation, use, or disposal of these substances. Transportation incidents can happen on roadways, railways, waterways, or pipelines. HazMat incidents require specialized training, equipment, and procedures for the detection, containment, and cleanup. According to OSHA's Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response, or HazWOPER standard, the EMS first responder's initial role is to recognize the potential for a HazMat incident during the scene size-up, avoid contact with the substance, isolate the area, and notify dispatch to request appropriate assistance. These steps are remembered using the acronym RAIN. When it comes to EMS response to a hazardous materials incident, the rule of thumb should always apply. This means that if you hold your thumb in front of the scene and you can still see the incident, you are too close. If you were dispatched to the incident on the left, you would probably be very suspicious of a hazardous materials incident. But what about the incident on the right? Could this be a hazardous material response? The answer is yes. The United States Postal Service, FedEx, and UPS all ship hazardous substances and may be carrying substances that they are unaware of because the shipper neglected to properly notify them. EMTs can identify a HazMat incident using a variety of visual, sensory, and informational clues. Consider factors including the occupancy and location of the incident. For example, laboratories, warehouses, home supply stores, and even home garages are a few examples of facilities where hazardous materials can be stored or found. Container shapes, sizes, and labeling can also provide clues to an incident. Visible signs like spills, vapor clouds, colored plumes of smoke are all indicative of a possible HazMat incident. If while approaching the scene of a call, you smell a chemical substance or your eyes begin to burn, it's time to retreat and reevaluate the scene from a distance for other indications of a HazMat incident. Once you have recognized the potential for a HazMat incident, be sure to position your vehicle and your crew uphill and upwind from the incident. Using the binoculars that should be available in your ambulance, you can survey the scene from a distance to look for additional clues, including dead animals around the scene, discolored pavement, and leaking containers. Share any information you can gather to the other responding units or agencies, and follow your local protocol for requesting a HazMat response. The image on the left is called a BLEVE, and this stands for the Boiling Liquid Expanding Vapor Explosion. The rapidly expanding vapor cloud will typically ignite, creating a massive and intensely hot fireball that we see in the image and generating a powerful shock wave capable of causing extensive damage and propelling fragments from the tank. So now we're going to go into a little more detail to discuss some ways that EMS responders can attempt to safely identify hazardous substances involved from a distance. Once identified, this information should be shared with dispatch and incoming resources, including the fire department and HazMat team. Hazardous materials are often stored in containers that can provide first responders with important clues about the substance within them. For example, stainless steel drums may be used to hold flammable liquids, cleaning chemicals, oil, or other non-corrosive materials, while drums constructed of polyethylene may contain corrosives like acids, bases, and other materials that cannot be contained by stainless steel containers. Much like our oxygen tanks, pressurized cylinders are used to store gases. Plastic bags are often used to store solids and powders, including pesticides, soda ash, and lime. While most businesses are required to label all storage containers, it's quite possible that you can come across chemicals that are not stored in an appropriate container or in unlabeled containers in places like residential sheds or garages, and in some illegal operations like methamphetamine labs. The image on the right is a sample of trailer shapes listed in the First Responder Emergency Response Guidebook that can help identify hazardous materials from a distance. The DOT marking system is a standardized set of regulations designed to ensure the safe transport of hazardous materials by communicating their risks to handlers, emergency responders, and the public. Governed by the Hazardous Materials regulations found in Title 49 of the Code of Federal Regulations, or commonly referred to as 49 CFR, the system primarily uses placards, labels, and marking. The system provides quick visual information about the potential dangers using universally understood symbols, colors, and numbers that are divided into the 9 classes that are seen here on this slide. Placards are large diamond-shaped signs affixed to the exterior of bulk containers, freight containers, transport vehicles, or rail cars on all 4 sides. Placards display the hazard class number in the bottom corner along with the corresponding symbol as seen in the images here. Labels are smaller diamond-shaped stickers applied to non-bulk packages like boxes or drums. They follow the same color, symbol, and numbering conventions as placards and must be both durable and weather-resistant. A 4-digit United Nations or UN identification number is a crucial part of the system. This number uniquely identifies specific hazardous materials and is displayed either within the center of the placard or on a separate orange rectangular panel immediately below the placard. Emergency responders use this UN identification number to quickly reference detailed safety information in resources like the Emergency Response Guidebook. The Emergency Response Guidebook, commonly referred to as the ERG, is a manual used by first responders for the initial phase of a transportation incident involving hazardous materials. The ERG is designed for use during the critical first minutes of an incident where immediate decisions like evacuation or setting up safe zones are necessary. A DOT ERG should be present in every public emergency service vehicle nationwide. The ERG is color-coded for quick navigation. The white pages in the front provide general information, safety precautions, shipping document information, how to use the guidebook, and the hazard classification charts for placards and the labels seen on the prior slide. Yellow pages list hazardous materials numerically by their 4-digit UN North America identification number. The blue pages list hazardous materials alphabetically by their proper shipping name. Orange pages contain individual safety guides detailing the primary fire and health hazards, recommended personal protective clothing, evacuation distances, and initial first aid measures. Green pages provide initial isolation and protective action distances for materials that are toxic by inhalation. Lastly, the white pages at the back include information on incident reporting, a glossary, and special guides for different scenarios, including general first aid and mixed loads. The ERG is updated every 4 years to incorporate new products, technologies, and regulatory changes. A free digital version and a mobile app are both available from the US DOT Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration website. Safety data sheets, formerly called Material Safety Data Sheets or MSDSs, are standardized documents that provide essential information about the hazards, safe handling practices, storage requirements, and emergency measures related to the specific chemicals or hazardous materials. These sheets outline details such as chemical composition, physical and health hazards, necessary protective equipment, first aid steps, firefighting measures, and procedures for spills or accidental exposure. SDSs are required by OSHA in workplaces that use hazardous substances. They serve as a key resource for employees, employers, and emergency responders to ensure safe and informed use of potentially dangerous materials. Shipping papers, called the HazMat Bill of Lading, is a legally binding shipping document that, in addition to the standard information like who the shipper is and who the receiver is of the goods, it also contains specific details for the safe transport of any hazardous materials that are on board. It must include critical information for compliance and emergency response. Specifically, a hazardous materials bill of lading needs to provide the hazardous material information in the ISHP sequence, which stands for I, identification number, S, shipping name or proper chemical name, H, hazard class, and P, packing group. So we're clear, a HazMat packing group is a classification system that categorizes hazardous materials by their degree of danger to determine the strength of the packaging required for transportation. The three packing groups are packing group 1, which is high danger, packing group 2, which is medium danger, and packing group 3, which poses a minor danger. Additional required information includes the quantity of the material being shipped, listed by mass or volume, the number and type of containers, emergency response information, and the contact number for the shipper and receiver. A copy of the bill of lading must be with the truck driver from the moment that vehicle leaves the point of origin until the shipment is delivered. It should be in the cab of the truck. This document ensures that all parties involved in the transport chain have the necessary information to handle and respond to the dangerous goods safely. Another resource we have available to us is the Chemical Transportation Emergency Center, or ChemTREC, which is a 24/7 public service hotline for emergency responders who need immediate critical response information for emergency incidents involving chemicals, hazardous materials, and dangerous goods. Established back in 1971 as a public service of the American Chemistry Council, ChemTREC's highly trained personnel receive hundreds of calls every day and provide assistance for incidents that range from minor to critical. ChemTREC also has toxicology and medical specialists available to aid with HazMat health and safety issues. When responding to a chemical, biological, or radiological incident, the first arriving crew must establish safety zones prior to entering the scene. Safety zones include the hot zone, which is the contaminated area indicated in red on this image. The warm zone, indicated here in yellow, is the area where the HazMat operations and technician specialists will decontaminate patients and fellow responders as they come out of the hot zone. And then the cold zone, or the safe zone, is indicated here in green, and this is where any personnel who are not specially trained to the HazMat operations or technicians level must remain. Depending upon the contaminant, the cold zone should be roughly 200 to 300 yards from the incident, and of course uphill and upwind. It should also be at least 50 yards uphill and upwind from the warm zone. These zones need to be clearly identified, and all responders and patients must leave the hot zone via the designated pathways into the warm zone where they will be decontaminated. A designated officer should be posted at the hot zone and warm zone to make sure all contaminated personnel are treated and decontaminated before entering the cold zone. As EMTs, we will be assigned to a designated area in the cold zone to assist with triage, treatment, transport, or rehabilitation after patients and responders have been decontaminated. The NFPA 704 standard utilizes a diamond-shaped symbol to communicate the hazards of materials to emergency responders. This fire diamond is divided into 4 color-coded quadrants, each representing a different hazard: blue for health hazard, red for flammability hazard, and yellow for instability or reactivity hazard. The severity of the hazards in the blue, red, and yellow sections is indicated by a number rating from 0 to 4, where 0 indicates no hazard and 4 indicates a severe or extreme hazard. The fourth section, the white quadrant at the bottom of the diamond, is used to denote special hazards including acid, alkali, oxidizer, corrosive, radioactive, and reacts with water. This standardized system is primarily used at fixed locations such as manufacturing facilities, warehouses, and chemical storage areas. As we see in the image on the right, whatever is contained in this facility is extremely hazardous with health, flammability, and reactivity ratings of 4 and includes special hazards including reactivity to water and being an oxidizer or a chemical that can intensify a fire by releasing oxygen. The 4 levels of hazardous materials protective equipment are, from highest to lowest protection, level A, B, C, and D. Level A provides the highest protection with a fully encapsulating chemical-resistant suit and a self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA. Level A suits are used for environments where hazards are highly toxic or unidentified, or where there's a risk of chemical splash and an unknown concentration of vapors. In the image on the left, the Level A suits are worn by the technicians in the gray suits. Level B protection offers high respiratory protection but less skin protection than a Level A. While Level B protection includes the chemical-resistant suit and the SCBA is worn on the outside of the chemical suit, as we see the folks in green wearing in the image on the left. Level C provides a lower level respiratory and skin protection and requires a full face or half mask air purifying respirator when the specific chemical hazard is known. Level C protection also includes chemical-resistant clothing, gloves, and boots as seen in the center image. Level D is the lowest level of protection, consisting of standard work clothing with no respiratory protection. Level D protection is used when there is no risk of chemical exposure. Standard work clothing, such as coveralls, safety goggles, and chemical-resistant boots, are used as seen in the image on the right. Most HazMat teams include EMS providers that are trained to the HazMat operations or technician level who can initiate care in the hot or warm zone. But due to the dangers, time constraints, and bulky Level A and B suits, only simple assessments and essential care, including ABCs, will happen in the hot and warm zones. Additionally, unless bulky dressings are necessary to stop serious bleeding, bandaging, splinting, and other care will not be initiated until the patient has been fully decontaminated and moved to the treatment area in the cold zone. So it's important for us to keep this information in mind when we're assigned to the treatment area at a HazMat incident. A complete assessment will need to be performed, and all appropriate care will need to be provided in this area. Management of airway and breathing are key at HazMat incidents because the most serious injuries and death occur because of airway and breathing complications. The images here illustrate the difference between gross and technical decontamination. The gross decom process seen in the left image is a rapid initial process to remove large amounts of contamination from people and gear, and it's often done with a high pressure rinse like we see in the image. In the training image on the right, a patient is preparing for technical decontamination, which is a much more thorough and deliberate process. Technical decon uses specialized procedures and cleaning materials to eliminate all detectable contamination from personnel and equipment. Responding to a hazardous materials incident requires EMTs to balance our desire to provide immediate patient care with strict adherence to safety protocols. By maintaining situational awareness and recognizing potential HazMat indicators during the scene size-up, EMTs can avoid becoming victims. Understanding the roles of the hot, warm, and cold zones ensures that we can safely remain ready to initiate patient care in coordination with fire and HazMat teams who are responsible for the containment, decontamination, and overall incident safety. As an EMT, you will be required to complete an awareness-level hazardous materials training program. FEMA's National Training and Education Division offers an online training program called Hazardous Materials Awareness Distance Learning, and the course ID is AWR 358W. As a first responder, you can complete this course for free at the link shown on your slide. Your textbook also provides additional information on the EMT's response to hazmat incidents. Thank you for watching this learning video.